Уважаемые коллеги, дорогие друзья, позвольте вас сердечно поприветствовать от имени факультета глобальных процессов Московского университета и Российского общества глобальных исследований.
Dear colleagues and friends, I'm glad to welcome you at our International Scientific Forum on behalf of the Faculty of Global Studies of the Moscow State University.
В эти предновогодние, предрождественские дни мы решили вместе с вами провести Международный научный форум, который бы завершил вот этот сложный, непростой, вместе с тем богатый на события год 2020, и, посовещавшись с вами, решили провести это мероприятие на тему COVID и безопасность человека.
In acknowledgement of this eventful anniversary year, which was 2020, and before the New Year and Christmas, we decided to dedicate this forum to the significant and relevant topic COVID and human safety.
Этот исторический, драматический год запомнится не только ковид-пандемией, но и тем, что все человечество отмечало 75-летие завершения Второй мировой войны, 75-летие создания Организации Объединенных Наций и ЮНЕСКО.
The outgoing year is going to be remembered not only because of the pandemic, but also because it was the 75th anniversary year of the great victory of peoples over fascism, Yalta Peace Treaty, the birth of the UN and UNESCO.
Для нас также этот год стал юбилейным. 2020 год – это год 265-летия Московского университета, 15-летия нашего факультета и 10-летия кафедры ЮНЕСКО по изучению глобальных проблем.
It was also the 265th anniversary year of the Moscow State University, the 15th anniversary of the Faculty of Global Processes, and the 10th anniversary of the faculty's UNESCO Department of Global Challenge Studies.
Конечно, для нас главным, несмотря на сложные времена, научно-организационным событием года стало проведение Международного научного конгресса «Глобалистика», которому и был посвящен тот видеоролик, с которого началось наше мероприятие.
For us, the key event of the outgoing year was the Congress of Globalistics, the International Scientific Forum, Global Social Transformations and the Prospects of Civilization, which we held in May, and this video, which you saw before my speech, was devoted to it.
Конгресс проходил под эгидой ЮНЕСКО, было 2 сессии, весной в мае, осенью в октябре, и собрал более 10 тысяч участников из 80 стран мира, представителей 10 международных организаций.
This Congress was organized together with UNESCO, the World Academy of Art and Sciences, and the Club of Rome and held together several global laboratories of ideas and thought.
Было организовано 35 электронно-цифровых площадок, прямые трансляции, и сейчас все это находится на интернет-портале globalistica.ru как некое интеллектуальное и очень актуальное наследие нашего времени.
During the Congress, there were 35 broadcasts online through the internet, and these broadcasts are still available at the website of the Congress.
И несмотря на трудности переживаемого времени, все-таки для нас этот год ознаменовался и развитием, и вместе с тем укреплением научного сотрудничества с нашими основными интеллектуальными партнерами, такими глобальными лабораториями идей, мысли, которыми, конечно же, являются ЮНЕСКО, Всемирная академия искусства и науки и Римский клуб.
In spite of all the difficulties and challenges of this year, we are going to remember it, first of all, because it was marked by this developing scientific cooperation with our key intellectual partners, which are UNESCO, the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, and the Club of Rome.
Очень серьезным мероприятием, которое мы провели совместно в мае, стал форум глобальной социальной трансформации и перспективы развития цивилизации. И вот теперь мы вновь встречаемся на общей онлайн-площадке, чтобы подвести итоги года, обсудить проблему обеспечения безопасности человека, чрезвычайно обострившуюся в результате разразившейся пандемии коронавируса.
The forum we held in May, Global Social Transformations and the Prospects of Civilization, was the key event of our cooperation, and today we're together online again to discuss the issues of human safety, which have become particularly critical as a result of the coronavirus pandemic.
Я от всей души очень рад приветствовать всех выдающихся мыслителей, экспертов, ученых, которые представляют различные организации, различные университеты разных стран мира, которые откликнулись на наше приглашение принять участие в нашем мероприятии.
It is a special pleasure for me today to greet the outstanding representatives of some global think tanks, outstanding thinkers and specialists who have responded to our call to take part in today's forum.
Особо хотел бы поприветствовать наших выдающихся организаторов науки, экспертной деятельности, доктора Джона Кроули, который возглавляет работу секретариата ЮНЕСКО в рамках программы МОСТ менеджмент социальных трансформаций.
I would like to welcome Dr. John Crowley, head of the Management of Social Transformation Project of the UNESCO.
Президента Всемирной академии искусства и науки Гарри Джейкобса.
Harry Jacobs, President of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences.
Исполнительного директора Римского клуба Карлоса Альвареса Перейра.
Executive Director of the Club of Rome, Carlos Alvarez Pereira.
И всех наших партнеров, друзей, коллег, членов этих организаций и других ученых, собравшихся сегодня вместе в нашем таком, получается, и узком, и широком одновременно интеллектуальном кружке в онлайн-формате.
All the other colleagues, friends and scientists who came together here, members of these organizations and other scientists who are present at the forum in this both narrow and wide circle of colleagues.
Отдельно хотел бы поприветствовать и представить в этом плане высокого представителя Организации Объединенных Наций, заведующего секретариатом Женевской штаб-квартиры ООН, известного дипломата, специалиста в области международных отношений Дэвида Чиквоидзе.
I'd like to especially welcome and present a high-ranked representative of the UN, Chief of Cabinet, Director General of the United Nations in Geneva, a well-known diplomat and international relations expert, David Chikwaidze.
Буквально несколько дней назад он выступил модератором очень крупного международного мероприятия по совместному проекту Женевской штаб-квартиры ООН и Всемирной академии искусств и наук «Глобальное лидерство в 21 веке».
Several days ago, he was moderating a major international event on global leadership in the 21st century, a joint project of the United Nations HQ in Geneva and the World Academy of Arts and Sciences.
И мы благодарны Давиду Александровичу, что он нашел возможность принять участие в нашем форуме, который, надеюсь, продолжит недавние дискуссии в Женеве. Это будет хорошим залогом нашего дальнейшего совместной работы.
We are grateful to David Alexandrovich for finding it possible to take part in this forum, which is going to build upon the recent discussions in Geneva and probably will be a good start for the forthcoming discussions on the topic.
Слова особой благодарности, признательности и восхищения председателю Российского национального комитета, вице-президенту Межправительственного совета ЮНЕСКО по программе биоэтики, этики науки и этики искусственного интеллекта, академику Российской академии наук, знаменитому выдающемуся доктору, пользующемуся огромнейшим авторитетом в нашей стране и во всем мире, Александру Григорьевичу Чучалину.
Words of particular thanks and gratefulness to Russian Academy of Sciences fellow Alexander Grigorievich Chuchalin, President of the Russian National Committee, Vice President of the Intergovernmental Council of UNESCO on Bioethics, Science Ethics and AI Ethics, a doctor of global renown and authority.
Александр Григорьевич, мы являемся коллегами по совместной работе в ЮНЕСКО. Я представляю Российскую Федерацию по программе МОСТ, управление социальными трансформациями. Александр Григорьевич, соответственно, представляет Россию тоже в ранге вице-президента вот в контексте такой важнейшей темы, как искусственный интеллект и биоэтика. И огромнейшее вам спасибо, Александр Григорьевич, за то, что вы любезно согласились сделать сегодня основной вступительный доклад в рамках нашего форума. Спасибо вам большое.
Alexander Grigorievich, we are colleagues in the work connected with UNESCO. You are a representative of Russia in this organization, and I represent the UNESCO program of management of social transformations in Russia. And once again, huge thanks to you for your kind agreement to make an introductory speech at our forum.
Конечно, мы мечтали о том, что встретимся лично, сможем принять, обнять наших дорогих гостей в Москве, в Московском университете, оказать самый теплый прием, традиционное гостеприимство. Но глобальная пандемия, глобальная проблема COVID-пандемии, как говорят, сейчас принято говорить, внесла свои коррективы в наш привычный, устоявшийся за последние годы режим и образ жизни.
Of course, we've been dreaming of meeting our guests in person in the Moscow of giving you all a warmest welcome with our traditional hospitality. However, coronavirus made us delay this, of course, made its mark on everything this year.
Но уверен в том, что когда острота этой новой глобальной проблемы пройдет, мы обязательно встретимся, это сделаем, как только предоставится такая возможность. Мы очень ждем этого и очень надеемся на то, что это случится в ближайшее время.
I do believe that the acuteness of this global challenge is going to recede very soon, and I do believe that we are all going to meet in person as soon as an opportunity is, probably in the nearest foreseeable future.
Очень рад видеть наших старых добрых друзей, с которыми связывает много лет плодотворного сотрудничества. И еще уж, извините, более рад видеть новые лица, с которыми мы познакомились, в том числе организуя наш совместный международный конгресс «Глобалистика» и думая о новых научных проектах.
I'm glad to see the familiar faces, people I have known for many years, and more, I'm glad to see the new colleagues and lists whom we started to work together recently.
Наш форум, без сомнения, будет очень интересен. Хотелось бы пожелать каждому из нас такой интересной плодотворной дискуссии, обмен мнениями, впечатлениями, эмоциями по итогам 2020 года. И надеюсь, что это станет таким добрым событием в преддверии Рождества, Нового года. И, конечно же, хотелось бы всем пожелать крепкого здоровья и новых успехов.
I'd like to wish our forum and fruitful discussions, exchange of opinions and observations, and I hope it will become a pleasant event ahead of Christmas and the New Year. And finally, I wish you all good health and success.
Уважаемые коллеги, всех рад очень видеть. И сейчас с большим удовольствием передаю слово главному такому организатору, модератору данного мероприятия, Юрию Николаевичу Саямову, крупному ученому, эксперту, заведующему кафедрой Московского университета, члену Римского клуба. Юрий Николаевич Саямов, пожалуйста.
Thank you,
So
Professor
once again,
Levin.
I'm glad to.
May I ask Professor Chichalin to take the floor, and we are all waiting for his presentation and his information on the topic of our event. And thank you again that you agreed to do it. So, Professor Chichalin, full member of the Russian Academy of Sciences, president of the Russian National Committee, our big friend and great doctor and scientist.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed, so kind invitation, my person. Dear Professor Lin, dear colleagues, in the outside, I would like to express my deep appreciation for the opportunity to make a report on the topic, the hot topic, coronavirus disease, COVID-19, and the human security in the world on the famous Lomonosov Moscow State University. I'm going to divide my presentation into three parts. The first part in the noosphere and modern interpretation, the concept developed in the beginning of the last century. And the second, the new infection in 91st century. I think it's a very excited team now, because not only the coronavirus, but another imaginary disease and the reimaginary disease, it's very, very serious problem now, the civilian world. And thirdly, COVID-19 and human security. Well, and I would like to start by saying, first of all, the noosphere and modern reading this concept. Well, and but in the beginning, we must become accustomed what the terminology we use. So first of all, the word on the noosphere. Noosphere, the term neologism consisting from two words, the Greek words. One on the nose, and it means the mind, and the sphere, it means the shell of E. So two Greek words in the noosphere. The two were first used by Roy in his excellent lecture he delivered in this lecture in the Sorbonne, Paris University, and he first scientist, philosophy, and mentioned about the new concept, the noosphere. His friend and very, very famous scientist, academician Vernadsky, after the lecture, Leroy developed this initiative and developed a new concept, the noosphere, to start this understanding the new position of the human being in the world. He proceeded from the fact the living organism is.
Excuse me, but can you speak a little bit louder?
Okay.
We can't hear very well.
He proceeded from the fact that living organism on Earth and inextricably and community connected, first of all by nutrition and respiration with the material and energy environment that surrounded them. Humanity is living being is inextricably linked with the biosphere. It can be physically separated from the biosphere for a single minute. Well, a living being is an insignificant part of the planet. It counts for the less than 1%, exactly in the 0.65%. In the course of this geological history, the biosphere morphologically changed many, many times. There is a slow change in the form of life, the form of living organisms that are genetically continuously connected with each other. So it's the next slide you will, and the academician Vernadsky. He was old man of the middle of 40 years. He thinking about the new approach to develop such a concept like the noosphere. This loss of life and passed down from one generation to the next without interruption. In the 20th century, man of the first time in the history on the Earth learned and covered the entire biosphere. Finished biographical map of the planet Earth settled all over its surface, humanity has become its life. There is not a single piece and land where person could not live. If he needed to, in the geological history of the biosphere, and the huge future opens up for humanity if I understands this and does not use in the mind and its labor for self-destruction. The noosphere in a new geological phenomenon. Vernadsky, forming the concept of the noosphere, identified 12 main provisions. So first of all, man's occupation of the entire planet is. It's really fantastic, but there is not a single piece of land where a person could not live if he needed. Well, and another provision, the transformation of the means of communication, the fantastic changes, but not stop. It will be really in the future will be dramatically changes. First of all, the artificial intelligence. Well, and the strengthens ties between the two countries. It's Vladimir Vernadsky and the thinking about really the good relationship between the.
Александр Ильич, нельзя немножко звук увеличить как-то, может микрофон?
It's okay now. It's okay. It's better.
Сейчас лучше, да, better.
It's better. Expanding the boundaries of the biosphere and human space flight. So I continue the predominance of the geological role of the man, while expanding the boundaries of the biosphere and human space flight. Well, and the new energy source, equality of people of all races and religions. Well, increasing the role of people in solving internal and external issues of politics and the state. Freedom of scientific thought, fantastic. And Vernadsky mentioned it practically 1 century ago, improving the welfare of the people, intelligent transformation of the nature of the planet, else in order to meet the material, aesthetic, and spiritual needs of human society. Well, exclusion of force from the life of human society. So today we are struck by the sagacity of the scientist and his views on the planetary process of human society, expressed by him practically 1 century ago. Some of these provisions prophetically came true, however, some provisions were impossible. So, for example, the provision of the war. In the everyday language of the modern world, we are really using the word noosphere, and more often resort to such an expression as a post-technological revolution. Human economic activity based on new technologies has affected all those who live in the biosphere. We are also interested in the person himself. What changes have occurred to it under the influence of the post-technological revolution? A hot question. We are forced to state the person has become vulnerable to external influences. A series of epidemiological studies conducted in different regions of the world, the rapid growth in the number of people predisposed to allergic reaction, skin, respiratory system, gastrointestinal tracked as other. Total number of people with allergic reaction exceeds 1/3 of the world population. Behind this data is the maladaptation of human immune system to foreign agents. It's very, very serious conclusion that changes in the immune system, the human being, and the increasing dramatically the people with suffering from the allergic disease. Thus, in the life of the person and his environmental food, clothing, water, and air quality appeared, to which he was evolutionarily unable to adapt, primarily to his immune system, the evolutionary function, it which is aimed at recognizing the alien. Another characteristic features of modern man is his tendency to metabolic disease, which can be evidenced by the rapid increase in the number of patients with diabetes. Only 4 groups of disease, cardiovascular and oncological disease, as well as diabetes mellitus and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, are the leading cause of death in the world. They account for more than 60% of the epidemic chronic non-communicable diseases. The year 2020 significantly changes our understanding of the role of viral, bacterial, and fungal disease in humans. On the past 2 decades, information has gradually accumulated about changes in the sensitivity for a number of microorganisms to antibiotics. By the beginning of this century, there was evidence of multiple drug resistance of Mycobacteria tuberculosis, principally now another disease, Streptococcus pneumoniae and other pathogens. Anti-record belong the bronchodial cepacia, which total 100% resistant to existing antibacterial drugs. This data indicates changes in the microbiota of the human body that occurred under the influence of the iatrogenic effects of previous antibiotic therapy. Clinical practice indicates a rapidly developed resistance to antifungal drugs. The role of fungal colonization is one of the problems of the present century. Viral dysbiosis is a global human health problem that has become particularly acute during the current year. The current pandemic is caused by the virus that has been identified as the SARS-CoV-2. I would like to mention that SARS-1 is disappeared the last 15 years. Virology, a new scientific direction of this century and the previous. The coronavirus has been identified relatively recently. In the mid-60 years of the last century, studies was conducted with one of the found to determine the causes of mass death of chicken. A virus was isolated from carcasses of dead chicken, which was shaped like a crown electron microscope. And one of the first field electron microscopy obtained the information about the structure of this virus. And the some activity syndrome as protein very activity to connection with the receptors of that. It means the receptors number 2 angiotensin converting enzyme. The beginning of this era studying the role of the coronavirus among representatives of the living world. However, it was not possible to cultivate it for a long time. Only in the mid-60 years, to the culture of epithelial cells of the human trachea, it became possible to grow in coronaviruses. Until 220, it was believed that an infection disease caused by coronavirus characterized by symptoms of cold, mainly with a clinical picture of acute rhinitis. The human community was careless when its fate the SARS epidemic in 2002. It covered many of countries of the southeastern regions of Asia, and sporadic cases were observed in the United States, Canada, and some other countries. But the biological reservoir mutation for the African cats and the farm in the Hong Kong, the first place in the outbreak to begin this period. Well, and situation was repeated 2012, and the Middle East respiratory syndrome affected mainly Saudi Arabia. So I would like to mention and draw your attention in the biological clock and the principle 8-10 years and the repeated another epidemic. Now, 1 year ago, a pandemic cause of the SARS-CoV-2 has broken out. In other words, so the mass and the biological reservoir and the embryo, it's another situation in the world. In other words, the 2000, now and the new changes in the genomic the virus and the new cause of the pandemic disease. But the biological reservoir, now the beds. So it's really interesting. The infection disease, this is coined by the coronavirus, one of the oldest human disease. I would like to mention, it's older than if you compare influenza. This slide, the phylogenetic, it's about 52 serotypes in the coronaviruses, and the very, very widespread in the nature, and the bats, and the amphibians, and the fish, and so on and so on. The gene pool of this viral disease indicates its extreme spread in the biosphere. It's difficult to name living matter that has not been infected with the virus. Currently, there are 52 serotypes of coronaviruses. Coronavirus began to form a gene pool, interacting with amphibians, subfamily, little virinia, but mainly with bats, Chiroptera, in the capital, also forming transmission to Parnoptera. It's about 4,000 years BC, acquired the ability of respiratory transmission, primarily probably representative of the genus Alpha coronaviruses. They separated into seasonal infection of humans. The evolution of viruses in natural ecosystem as a result of changes in their population gene pool process that lead to constant emergence of new genetic clusters. This process underlies the emergence of new and recruiting infection. Scientific forecasts are related to possible epidemic of avian influenza, as well as a smallpox. It's serious scientific information. As nowadays, we should to prepare the special program, first of all, and the preparation new generation vaccine to protect spreading this very, very, very aggressive infection. One of the main conclusions of the pandemic and vulnerability of humans to new and recurring infection disease. The modern human community will have to review many of the foundations of previous way of life. But today it's obvious that such factors as climate changes, the ecology of ocean and seas, as well as multiple rivers and lakes, air pollution have had negative impact of human health. A special role in human adaptation to the environmental belongs to the immune system. It's focused now on the human being, the situation of the immune system. The human immunological passport should be considered as a risk factor for possible infection disease. The new generation of vaccine should ensure the maintenance of the innate immunity activity. So the new paradigm, the vaccine, first of all, activity stimulated the two parts of the immunity, innate immunity and the mucosal immunity, which is especially important among the elderly people. Currently, studies on the state of mucosal immunity have been actively conducted. The introduction of the viruses, bacteria, and fungi, as well as the association of the human body largely depend on the state of mucosal immunity. In this direction, the first attempts have been made to create vaccine that activity affect the state of immunity of the mucous membrane of the respiratory system and gastrointestinal tract. The 21st country should be recognized as the century of creating a new generation of vaccine. And the end of my presentation, first of all, thank you very much indeed, really your attention. I'm sorry that by the some voice not so loud, but I would like to again the concept, the knowledge sharing, the first technological revolution and changes the human being. First of all, the adaptation in these changes in the biosphere. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Professor Chuchalin. Thank you very much. I have got many messages in chats showing that your report and presentation have raised a lot of interest and appreciation. It is really a very important topic. And with your permission, I would like to invite my colleague as moderator of this meeting, Dr. Gary Jacobs, President of the World Academy of Art and Science, to continue our discussion today. Gary, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yuri, and greetings to all here. I'd like to thank Dean Illian for his introductory remarks and his welcome to all of us and all our many friends we have here. David Chikvaidze, our partner at UNOG, President Emil Constantinescu, who's our partner in the Institute of Advanced Studies in Romania, Carlos Pereira from Club of Rome, and so many other friends that I can't mention them all. I'd like to make just a few brief remarks about the context of this discussion. We have so many qualified people here. I'm more interested to hear responses from everybody else. But I'd like to make a few provocative statements, perhaps, and then open it, and then after we've heard from Carlos, perhaps we can open it and have a good discussion. It's interesting that since COVID has come, we're having more meetings with our friends in Moscow than ever before. And one of the things that COVID is doing, it's keeping us separated from each other physically, but in many respects, we feel more connected and we are having closer relations with more people all over the world. In fact, I think many of you may have the same problem we're having. Without traveling anymore, it seems like there's no time to rest because our days, even our nights are filled up. So it indicates that there's a radical change going on now. And I think it's obvious that this change is not going to go away just with the subsiding of this virus. And I think the reason for that is that the multi-dimensional crisis we're going through now is reflective of something more profound than just an epidemic disease that's going around the world. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like the speed of our social evolution has acquired such an intensity, such a magnitude, that it's stretching our capacity to respond and adjust. And it's creating a widening gulf between the ideas and the institutions by which we're running the world and the ideas and institutions that we need to keep pace with the change. And I think we're seeing many symptoms of that we're all familiar with. They're just being exaggerated in their in the apparentness by the COVID. And I want to compliment Yuri Saramov for his excellent discussion paper for the crisis. He's touched on so many points that that we are examining in the World Academy of Art and Science, and that I hope we can explore today. And I would just like to highlight a few points that I think are particularly relevant to this, because he has stressed in the paper, as our colleague Jonathan Granoff did in the Geneva conference, that our concept of security is so far out of sync with the real threats of security today. And we're spending a huge disproportionate amount of money on a national security concept that's decades out of date, when the real threats that we need to be putting our resources and our attention to cannot be addressed by nuclear weapons or any other type of weapons for that matter. They need a whole different type of security strategy. This is an example of how out of alignment we are. Our economic system is exactly the same thing. We've got a huge amount of wealth generated, a huge amount of global financial resources. There's no shortage of resources in the world, but we've got an old system of distribution, of control, that the more resources we get, the greater the inequality is coming, whereas we have plenty of money available on Earth today to meet all of the needs of everybody and all of the challenges we face, whether they're ecological or economic or educational or of other security. So this increasing disharmony between where we've come from, and the one that we explored very much in our project with the UN office at Geneva, in the Global Leadership Project, was the need, which the UN has very much recognized, is that the same is true of our multilateral system. That we have a multilateral system that was founded back in 1945 in the framework of it, and is still largely, though UN has gone through many transformations and we have many new institutions in the world, but very largely it's still controlled by the concept of nation states in competition with each other, when what COVID has demonstrated more than anything else is that we're all in this together, and nobody is safe until we're all safe. Nobody is secure. A tiny little virus from wherever it came from, starting in some obscure place on one part of the world, has taken us all down. And in ways that none of our security apparatus, our economic system doesn't help us, our military system, our food security system is breaking down, our educational system is closed down. And I think, my point is, I think the message to us is more fundamental than how do we get through the next 12 months or however long this is going to last. The message for us is, how are we going to radically and rapidly revamp our institutions and our thinking, our concepts on which these institutions are based? And that's the challenge confronting us today. And I hope that Yuri has touched a number of points on it. And I was very gratified in our work with the UN to see how much within the UN the thinking is that we really need a much more inclusive system. We need to get the voices of all humanity in there. And that means institutional change to give amplitude and empowerment to those voices. And those are some of the issues we've been exploring, challenging issues, as we all know, because the problem with change is not that we don't know what to do, but the resistance of entrenched ways of doing things is so great. The resistance for change is so great. We need a COVID, perhaps, to get us out of the old mold. So with that, I would like to close my remarks, because there are so many interesting things that I'm sure that we'll hear from other participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. May I pass the floor to Carlos Alvarez Pereira, our friend from the Club of Rome, who is always very, let us say, very provoking new ideas and new approaches, and making us think about challenges of our time. So Carlos, welcome. Please, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Yuri. Hello to so many good friends and people that I unfortunately don't know yet, but I'm very happy to be here with you. And just a few comments, because I'm here more to listen what you have to say than to talk. But I loved, you know, the Club of Rome is well known for provoking new thinking since the very beginning. This is more or less the mission. Sometimes I say that our mission is to ask better questions. So to see new ideas coming out, the creativity, human creativity in action. And I was very happy from that point of view to see the conference, the talk by Professor Alexander Chuchalin start with Vladimir Vernadsky, who did so much 1 century ago, you know, to craft a concept which was going beyond the ideas at the time, the ideas which were used to frame our interpretation of reality. This concept of noosphere is more modern now, more needed now, even than it was when it was crafted. So that was a very good starting point. And I would like to use that starting point to make a couple of comments on the importance of how we frame our conversations and our interpretations of reality. We don't have an objective access to reality. We have perceptions, and we make sense of those perceptions through certain frameworks of interpretation. So sometimes when crises happen, this can be used in a positive way to open those frameworks and to question them. And for instance, what impressed me in the development of this COVID crisis is that first, it became more obvious to me, and I think to many people, that we know little, very little about viruses. And with all our capacities, you know, scientific capacities, unfortunately, these have produced in a short time frame vaccines and all of that. Yes, we have mobilized those capacities, but to be honest, we know still little about viruses and the role they play in life, in the origins of life, and in our definition of life, and what we consider are living beings or not. And this makes that one of the metaphors which we have heard many times in this crisis, especially at the beginning, but still today, is that we are at war with virus. And I think we have to be very cautious about using the metaphor of war in the health domain, in the domain of COVID, but also in any other domains, because this is a dangerous framing. And I think it's not, it is rarely, if at all, appropriate, you know. But especially the war on virus, this is not an appropriate framing in my view, because we cannot be at war with something which is a piece of nature. We have to understand the existence of virus and our relationship to viruses in a completely different way. And this reminds me of a big program launched in the 70s by the Nixon administration for the war on cancer. You may remember that. It happened that that program was not very successful. Most of what we learned on cancer and all what has been, a lot of what has been developed since then to prevent people from getting cancer or to cure them and to heal them, was learned from fundamental research, which was not framed in the context of the war on cancer. So that came from knowledge acquired in completely different ways, without this metaphor of the cancer is the enemy and we are waging war. And I think for obvious reasons, this is especially important today when we want to, as this forum has been convoked, to connect COVID with human security. We have to stop using the metaphor of war in general, and we have to start using the metaphor of learning, which is completely different, and it conveys different messages. First, it conveys the message that we don't know, there is so much we still don't know that we have to learn. And it is not about destroying what we don't know, like in war. It's about learning, exploring, it's about reviving the spirit of exploration, and it's about learning together. It's very much about, this is a collective adventure in which we have to learn what we don't know and explore uncharted territories. And to finish my intervention, I would like to make the connection between something that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said earlier this month, and how do we proceed from there? He said literally, humanity is waging war on nature. And he added, it is suicidal, which of course is, unfortunately, both things I think are true. We are waging war with nature, and in that case the metaphor is appropriate because it describes something that we don't recognize ourselves, and we have to go beyond that, and it is a suicide for humanity to do so. So let's get out of that framing into a more positive adventure of learning, and learning there's so many things that we don't know about how to reconcile human life and human well-being within a healthy biosphere. I would like to stop here and give the floor to all of you if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you. You raised the question about United Nations and the recent remarks by UN Secretary General. It coincides with my desire to ask Dr. Chikwaidze if he takes the floor for some time to address us, because we are very happy to have him with us. And Dr. Chikwaidze, would you please take the floor?
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sayamov. Thank you also for inviting me to this very representative and very heavy on the intellectual side conference. It's slightly daunting to be speaking before such an audience. And I must say that the COVID epidemic does have a silver lining to it, and it is the fact that we can get together from different corners of the earth and meet in one conference. I wanted to thank everybody who spoke for this very generous presentation. But I want to thank Dr. Sayamov specifically for inviting me to this event, which is, while virtual, it's focused on the Moscow State University, which for me has very special meaning in our family, because in the 250th anniversary of the university in 1955, my late father was an alumnus of the Faculty of Law. And so MGU is an acronym that is very, very dear to our hearts and our family. One thing that I wanted to note was that many anniversaries happen to fall on this year, and they were mentioned. One anniversary which wasn't mentioned specifically is that this is also the 100th year of multilateralism, modern multilateralism as we know it today. And we obviously hark back to the Versailles Treaty and the League of Nations. While the League did not last as long as the UN did, but it was a prototype which to many of us still raises the specter of how an international organization was already thought of back then. Incidentally, strangely enough, many things continue from what was started by the League, including our oath of office, by the way, of international civil servants. But multilateralism, I raise this because that is precisely what we have been talking about, and we've been arguing for in many fora, but especially in this conference that Gary Jacobs and the UN held very recently. And I want to thank Gary again for being the intellectual and the organizational mover and shaker of this conference and of the thought process behind it and in front of it, because he is already thinking ahead. And it's good to see him and Mila, his right hand or left hand, I don't know, both. One thing that Gary said, the way he presented things, he kept saying, we have to do this, we. And that is absolutely correct, because I know what he means by we. He means all of us, human beings, we the peoples. Unfortunately, the problem is that we the peoples are divided by we the governments. And the governments are still in a very, very Westphalian mode, and they are running the show. And they are also running the United Nations, an organization that they created for themselves, and hired the Secretary General, who then hired the likes of me for only one of the principal organs. It is only one organ, the Secretariat, which everybody means when they say UN. However, we are living through a very, very unique time. It is not your usual sort of periodic routine change in governments or in the way the deck chairs are organized. This is a pivotal moment we're going through, and this moment actually has been dormantly kind of moving ahead since 30 years ago, but it has come to a head now with what we have in hand is like a perfect storm. We have all the components that are raising our alarm bells. We keep saying that we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to come together. That's precisely it. What needs to change is the mindset of governments. This is not a usual time where that our governments have the luxury of looking at the world as me, them, using outdated 20th century terminology like zero-sum result, west, east, etc. It's time everybody in all the leading governments woke up and faced the music. This planet needs a mindset change. Now, we have a roadmap which has been there for the last 5 years. the Sustainable Development Goals. We also have perfectly good machinery and tools in excellent working order. Like any machinery, they can be adjusted, they can be dusted off, oiled here and there. But the UN system is that machinery. What needs to be done is for the governments that own this system to use the machinery, not to abuse it and then say that the machinery is irrelevant or is not up to specs of the 21st century. It can be made to work, and it has worked, and it will work. It needs member states to approach this machinery as a place which they created to go to agree, engage in diplomacy and agree on things, and not to score points against each other. And that goes for all kinds of councils, whether it's the Security Council or the Human Rights Council. I'd like to stop there. I hope it was provocative enough to add to the mix, and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chikwaidze, for your very interesting and profound remarks. Thank you especially for warm words to Moscow University. I hope it will be our joint scientific platform also for future meetings. And today we have also another scientist who is for the first time with us at this platform. I mean, Professor Emil Constantinescu from Romania, who is very well known not only as a statesman but also as scientist, as a global research specialist. And I would like to ask him to take the floor. Professor, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. It has been very interesting to hear Dr. Tchouchalin's presentation, especially his references to Vladimir Vernadsky, who was an inspiring geochemist and one of the scholars I looked up to all throughout my academic career. Also, thank you, distinguished Professor Sayamov, for the invitation to this event and for the kind introduction. Esteemed guests, I'm glad to join you today in the International Scientific Forum, COVID and Human Security, and I congratulate you for such an initiative. This has been a year of multiple anniversaries, 75 years since the end of the Second World War, since the establishment of the United Nations Organization and the UNESCO, and 6 years since the foundation of the World Academy of Art of Science. This has also been the year in which the pandemic of COVID-19 took us by surprise and changed the world we were familiar with. In an effort to assess the long-term implication of the pandemic, the Institute of Advanced Studies in Levant Culture and Civilization launched in May 2020 the project entitled The World Post-COVID-19 Pandemic, a Humanist Vision for Sustainable Development. The project was one of the multidisciplinary anticipation of the future, with the intention to gather contribution for renowned scholars from all over the world, comprising their perspective on how will the world look like after the pandemic. As we are believed that the pandemic would be over soon, we considered that it was an appropriate thing to do, to start projecting reconstruction solutions. Yet we were all mistaken. Not only did the pandemic continue, but it grew to monstrous proportions. with countries dealing with the second wave and with even tighter restriction than in the beginning of the pandemic. As a result, it was time of redimension. Instead of a recommendation for the future rebuilding of the world, we start focusing more on the matters that need to be identified first and then treated in the long term. It was glad to see that upon the launching of the call for contributions, scholars from all over the world started sending us their views and thoughts on the matter. So far, we have received contribution for World Academy of Art of Science Fellows, Gary Jacobs, Donato Kininger, Vasily, Stefan Brunhuber, Winston Nagan and Samantha Manauza, Fadwa El Guindi, Shoshana Beckerman, Ash Pachauri, and from the Marmara Group Foundation, Akan Suver, as well as Romanian scholars, Laszlo Borbeli and Emil Dinga. Other contributions are in preparation to be launched on the website in early January. Also, within the project, 13 video conferences have been organized by the Institute together with our main partners, the World Academy of Art of Science, the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, the Marmara Group Foundation, the Black Sea University Network, and the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin. Should you be interested in the outcome of this conferences, please access the Institute website dedicated to this project. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to contribute to the project with your own perspectives, ideas, and recommendations on the future post-pandemic world. In this regard, I would like to introduce to you
Professor, we did not hear you. The connection, it seems, is lost for...
Юрий Николаевич, я через 10-15 минут должен смыться. Копишь? Кома.
Professor, do you hear us? No?
No, Yuri, he doesn't seem to be online.
Mhm. Anyway, we are grateful to Professor Constantinescu for his contribution, for his invitation, and in order not to be accused in man chauvinism, because so far only men have spoken, I would like to ask an outstanding scientist from Iceland, Kristín Vala Ragnadottir, to make it simpler, I permit myself to call this nice woman always Vala. Vala, don't you want to say a couple of words to all of us in order to represent the best half of the humanity?
Well, thank you. I was not expecting to address this distinguished assembly. I've been writing in the chat here that in order to help to change the leadership in the world, we need more women in leadership. And this is why we need to support that young women have the capacity to take part. And I would also like to call for that when such distinguished assemblies are called together, like here today, that the organizers look into having a gender parity. Because it has been shown in many different studies that when there are more women involved and more minorities for that matter also, then the discussions become different and in many respects perhaps more collaborative in order to find the solutions that we need today. And we've seen that in the COVID crisis. There are now several studies that have shown, at least for the first wave of COVID this spring, that where women were in leadership, the outcomes for the health of the population were much better. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vala. Thank you so much. And from you, I would like to pass the floor to Maria Ivanova, who joined us from the United States, a famous scientist who participated in the elaboration of the present global agenda. Maria, would you like to tell us some words?
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. Just like Vala, I didn't expect to be speaking, and I do agree with her fully that engaging women from the start is important. I'll put in the chat in a little bit this global movement of a no manel zone. Manels are the panels where there's only men presenting. Yes. So I'll put that in the chat a little bit. But I just wanted to say I am in Boston at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, which is the only public research university in Massachusetts, in Boston, in the greater Boston area, where we have over 55 colleges and universities. It is the highest concentration of higher education institutions in the world. And I would like to echo the call for changing the metaphor to one of learning, and then engaging with higher academic institutions on how to change the metaphor from a war to one of learning. So thank you very much for pointing that out, Carlos. It's a really, really important point. And at the same time, the whole learning enterprise has changed. So I don't even know how higher education now defines learning in this new environment. As you pointed out, we are all in the same Zoom room together, which would not have happened several just months ago. We couldn't come together so easily and so quickly. And so there is a new opportunity for learning. And I would like to in a sense, put the challenge to both the Club of Rome and to the World Academy of Arts and Sciences of how do we rethink what we're doing. So I am the director of the PhD program in global governance and human security. And so I was excited to join here on this discussion about human security, because human security is not an issue where people get degrees, except in very few places. And I joined UMass Boston 10 years ago to create this PhD program. And so we created it very, very deliberately. And human security is the what, the ability of humans to lead healthy and productive lives in harmony with nature. And global governance is the how, the processes, the institutions, the interactions that actually allow us to get to the human security goal. And so I would be delighted to engage in these conversations and to bring more people to our PhD program. It is highly diverse. We have now over 60 people from 30 countries, and we are one of the universities that actually do not discriminate in terms of giving fellowships. So we do have a limited number of full scholarships, full fellowships, and they can be given to anyone from anywhere in the world. And this comes from my own experience. a number of you pointed out the links to MGU, to the Moscow State University. I am a Bulgarian by origin, and I was part of the first group of Bulgarians in 1991 to apply to colleges and universities in the United States and receive a full scholarship because it was just happening. And so this is what we created at UMass Boston, a program where anyone from around the world could receive a full scholarship. I did put the link to the program in the chat, and I'd be delighted to engage with any of you and welcome applicants to the program, but also engaging with you on these issues. So otherwise, I work on environment and the United Nations. So my book on UNEP at 50 is coming out, and studying the United Nations and what it does and how it can perform better is what I do as a scholar.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you. It was very interesting what you informed us about. It is a very advanced approach, in my opinion, and very timely. And we have a scientist in Russia who developed a new word for security science. I would like to give the floor to Professor Igor Kefeli from St. Petersburg, who will tell you how he calls theory of security and what is this word for. Professor Kefeli, please.
Thank you.
Юрий Николаевич, sorry, Professor. Юрий Николаевич, I should leave in few minutes.
Professor Kuzminov, thank you for being with us. Professor Kuzminov, former director of the UNESCO Bureau in Venice. And thank you, and hoping to see you with us in future as well. Happy New Year to you. And Merry Christmas. Sorry, Professor Kefeli.
Thank you. My greetings from St. Petersburg. I apologize for my English pronunciation. The human security is very broad issue. It covers the life of each of us, the human community as a whole, the biosphere of which we are part. Human security is a global problem that involves not only collective participatory decision, but also its humanitarian and specifically scientific understanding. The digital world, which embodies the modern technology sphere, means not only a leap from the analog to the digital era, which opens up a vast expanse of new knowledge, but also the appearance of many expected and unexpected risks to human life and human security. On the horizon of research into the risks and ways to overcome them, there is a new direction for global studies, as photonics, as prolegomena to the theory of global security. In my books as photonics. The problem of ensuring global security has come to the forefront of the world's agenda, as evidenced by the onset of the coronavirus pandemic in early 2020. This was confirmed by address to General Assembly of the Secretary General Antonio Guterres. I see four horsemen among us, four impending threats, the endangered path of progress in the 21st century: geopolitical tensions, the climate crisis, global distrust, and technological shortcoming, or the dark side of digital world that can jeopardize every aspect of common future. Every year since 2006, the Davos Economic Club has published the Global Risks report, which identify 5 groups of global risks of the era of insecurity: geopolitical, economic, environmental, technological, and social. These 15 reports for 15 years, as well as numerous analytical studies of the state of the Earth's biosphere, the polar caps, and the world ocean. The formation of the 6th technological order and digitization of all aspects of human life directly indicate the onset of geological epoch in global history, the Anthropocene. I hope a comprehensive solution of the these problems will contribute to the exchange of ways to strengthen the human security, the life peace of man and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kafili. I would like to ask Professor Benno Verlin to greet him first and to ask him, he is from Jena, from Germany, very known specialist for global studies and also human rights. Professor, would you like to take the floor?
Yeah, I can say a few words if you like. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please.
I would like maybe some reflections on Gary's and Carlos' statements, but also some of the previous. What I was taking out of the presentation so far is that we really need a new mindset, and we are all stuck in ideas of or most people are stuck in governments and so on, stuck in concepts of the 19th and 20th centuries, try to deal with problems of the 21st century. And I think this is a big issue. Most people are thinking in national or in the best cases in international concepts. But I think we need absolutely to think local and regional problems in a global perspective. So we need to develop a global understanding of our everyday living conditions throughout the planet. Otherwise, I don't see any possibility to deal with the ongoing globalization of all living conditions around the globe, from the natural or biophysical aspects, but also of the cultural, social, and economical contexts. If everyone's, if you had it over the last couple of years or nearly a decade of growing nationalism in front of the globalizing processes, I think this is the most dreadful development we can have of all possible worst scenarios. So I think I can only call for global perspective for all kinds of national or regional and local problem constellations, and giving a strong emphasis on cultural perspectives. So far, I think that nearly all sustainability programs are far too much influenced by a geo-bio perspective, thinking of in bio and spatial categories all the challenges of our present generations. If we start from this bio-geo perspective, we will not be able to take into account cultural differences and find solutions for global problems with respect for cultural differences. And I think this is a very important issue, if I can say that, and especially to change the mindsets. We need also, like Maria just was referring to, new study programs, because most people in governments are trained by old curricula in all different disciplines, and this will not be very helpful for most problems we are facing in the near future, especially also the ones that have been mentioned by Gary and Carlos just some minutes ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. We have with us another great scientist, Professor Kegong. Professor, are you with us? Anyway, we are happy that Professor Constantinescu is back to all of us, and I see that Anitra is also back to us, Professor Tornhall. Would you like to take the floor, Anitra?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry I had an emergency here. My point following Carlos and Gary are that when we think of security, the opposite of that is insecurity. And when we destroy and degrade nature, water, air, living plant ecosystems in the sea and on the land, we cannot expect that we're going to live with real security, Earth security, no matter how many atom bombs or nuclear missiles we have. We can't eat nuclear devices, nor warships, nor planes, and we can't breathe them either. So we have to think of what real security is, and we have too much degradation of nature in general. We have too dense urban centers, and we have too much overpopulation. And the Ehrlichs 4 decades ago have talked about the population bomb and what any living system has when you put a great many cattle or chickens or, in fact, trees that you're nurserying to plant in the wilderness together. You're going to get the vectors of the microbial population, which includes fungi, virus, and microbacteria, exploding, because this is what they live on, is the chance that they will find some of these. So I think this has made us stop and think, what is real security, Earth security? Thank you.
Thank you, Anitra. Thank you so much. Would you like to comment on something, Dr. Ahammer, our friend from Austria? Gilbert, are you with us? Most probably not. Is there anyone who would like to take the floor, please?
Sir, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Sayamo, for this opportunity and for the invitation to be at this forum. It has been great to go through the concept paper that was prepared for this forum, which is a must read for everybody. It's very well crafted. Now, I would like to mention that I recall a statement by Andrei Gromyko, former foreign minister of USSR, when he said that it's better to have 10 years of negotiation than 1 day of war. And that is still to be followed, as many of our learned speakers have also told, that we can't eat missiles and nuclear weapons can't solve all the problems that humanity faces. So one of the important thing is that we should divert the huge funds that we are using for the heaps of weapons and divert them for the social development of our people and ensuring people security. That would be a much help. I think COVID has given us an opportunity to rethink, redesign our the way we live, the way we work, and the way we govern. So let us not waste this opportunity and go ahead with new thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that we're approaching Christmas. Maybe I give the floor also to Manish Sharma, and we shall then finish our session, because our students would like to present you Christmas and New Year greetings. So Professor Sharma, please. And I hope that we shall not take long today. We shall better spare our efforts for new meeting with all our friends and colleagues from all over the world. And please, Dr. Sharma.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you. And it's my privilege to be with you once again as part of the UNESCO Network Chair. I'm thankful to you and to the Moscow State University. In fact, the major aspiration of 2030 agenda is, the tagline is, no one should be left behind. So when we are talking about this COVID-like situation, when we are not having faith on each other, like the China, what had done it on the other side, and the COVID-like situation is all because of a particular country. So how we develop this kind of the confidence measure should be such that we can have the faith on each other. Second, the aspect of, as taken up by the learned speakers before me, that the COVID situation has made us to understand that humanity has to relearn the concept of humanity. Because what we are doing, as Professor Jagdish ji had just mentioned, that we cannot eat the nuclear weapons, but the country who are having the most nuclear weapons with them and who are selling each and everything to the other nation just to safeguard themselves, that is not the right approach. In case if we have to come together, then we have to take each another. That is what the tagline of Mahatma Gandhi also, that in case if you leave behind the weaker section, then you will not be able to do the development of the poor or of the development of the society. So the tagline should be like that: when we are not leaving anyone behind, then we should take each and every one, and we have to rebuild the confidence with each other so that we can redevelop the concept of the brotherhood or the universal brotherhood. So one more thing, that as COVID-19 situation has given us that within the less financial constraint, we can develop some good things. And out of all these things is the Zoom meeting like we are having. But how many of the people are using it because they are not having the infrastructure with them? So how we develop these kind of infrastructure so that we can bring more people into these things, then it would be really helpful. And with these words, I'm again thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much, sir. And
Thank
Merry
you,
Christmas
Professor
and Happy New
Sharma.
Year.
And I think that our greetings, I mean, from the organizers, go to every participant in this event, especially to Professor Chichalin for his brilliant introduction and presentation, especially for Dr. Gary Jacobs, President of the World Academy of Art and Science, especially to Carlos Alvarez Pereira, Director of the Club of Rome, to Professor David Chikwaidze, who was so kind to be present at our meeting, to all the participants, I would like to wish all of you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And now this would like to do our students. So they will present their greetings to you, dear friends, and we hope that the forthcoming year 2021 will be rich of good emotions and new scientific discoveries. Thank you again and see you in the new year 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more champagne and the fireworks are through. Here we are, me and you, feeling lost and feeling blue. It's the end of the party and the morning seems so gray, so unlike yesterday. Now's the time for us to say Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have a vision now and then of a world where every neighbor is a friend. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have our homes, our will to try. If we don't, we might as well lay down and die. You and I. Sometimes I see how the brave new world arrives, and I see how it thrives in the ashes of our lives. Oh yes, man is a fool, and he thinks he'll be okay, dragging on, freedom play, never knowing he's astray, keeps on going anyway. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have a vision now and then of a world where every neighbor is a friend. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have our homes, our will to try. If we don't, we might as well lay down and die. You and Seems to me now that the dreams we had before are all dead. Nothing more than confetti on the floor. It's the end of a decade. In another 10 years' time, who can say what we'll find? What lies waiting down the line? In the end of 89.
Ciao, buon Natale e buon anno.
Happy New Year to everyone. Thank
Happy
you
New
for
Year.
your
Merry
participation.
Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Congratulations.
С Новым годом!
Happy New Year.
С Новым годом.
Bye.
С Новым годом! Вам всего хорошего.
Happy New Year, bye.
Hello.
Very happy Christmas holiday. All the best to you all.
Thank you, Dr.
Happy
Samal.
holiday.
Thank you, Yuri.
Thank you,
Excellent,
Gary.
outstanding.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very much.
Carlos. Thank everybody.